My younger brother, David, turned my childhood into a nightmare and later got my wife pregnant. Now, after our parents disowned him and left me their $2 million estate, he's begging for my help. People might assume his hatred came from jealousy, but that wasn't the case. He was always the favorite, never me. There was no reason for envy. For background, our mother spoiled David rotten. He was the golden boy. She cooked whatever he wanted, washed his clothes, and even made me tutor him when he struggled in school. I was told to help because that's what brothers do. Yet no one ever helped me the same way. I didn't complain much. I was self-sufficient by nature. Maybe I enabled it by always stepping up without demanding reciprocity. David never lifted a finger for me and only spoke to me when he needed something. I was a quiet, bookish kid who preferred studying alone, while he was loud, aggressive, and took after our father. I've always been blunt and honest, never one to soften the truth. I suspect Mom started disliking me because of my directness. That favoritism turned David into the family prince, and I didn't fight it growing up. But the trouble started when he began tormenting me for being different. He mocked my height, my glasses, broke into my room to read my journal, then ran to Mom with private details. When I lost my temper and complained about the invasion of privacy, our parents laughed it off as brotherly antics. He did worse things. Nearly snapped my glasses in half, put disgusting stuff in my food, once even slipped small pebbles into my breakfast cereal. Thankfully, I noticed before biting down. When I told Mom, she shrugged and said, "That's how boys play." Whenever we argued, he zeroed in on my deepest insecurities. We attended the same school, so he knew exactly which kids bullied me. Instead of having my back, he joined them, calling me ugly freak or hairy ape, and egging them on to hit me, saying I was a pathetic failure. During one meaningless fight I can't even recall, he screamed at me to kill myself. Most insults rolled off me, but that one cut deep. I was already battling depression at the time. I'm better now, but hearing my own brother wish me dead was soul-crushing. Dad was usually at work, and Mom didn't care. She even scolded me for provoking him. Things kept escalating. In high school, David once tried to set my hair on fire with a lighter. Unbelievably, Mom defended him, saying he was just joking around. Who jokes like that? Thankfully, Dad finally stepped in, told David it was attempted assault, and threatened to involve the police. That was the first time David ever faced real consequences. He looked genuinely shocked. Dad made it clear the bullying had to stop and that David needed to respect his older brother. Later that night, Dad came to my room. I'd never expected support from him. He always bragged about how alike he and David were. He admitted he'd been waiting years for David to grow up, but was now realizing David had become a straight-up bully. Hearing Dad validate everything nearly broke me. I poured out years of hurt, including the school bullying. Dad was horrified at what I'd endured alone. The next day, he marched to the principal and put the bullies on notice. That evening, he signed me up for MMA classes at the local gym, saying I needed to learn to defend myself against all the bullies in my life, David included. A scrawny nerd learning to fight sounded ridiculous, but I threw myself into it. I balanced training with top grades. The gym transformed my body and my confidence. One day, David struck again. He stole the chore money I'd been saving for months. I caught him sneaking out of my room and hopping on his bike to meet friends. I demanded it back. He laughed, saying all I ever did was run crying to Daddy. Something snapped. I punched him square in the face. He stumbled, fell, and I fished the cash out of his pocket before shoving him back to the ground. He started wailing like a baby. Mom came running, scooped him up, then turned on me, saying I should set a better example. She complained to Dad that I was out of control. Dad called us both in, stone-faced. I explained the theft. David whined that he needed the money for a date and that I, as his brother, should have just given it to him. Dad told David he was lucky I only punched him. Anyone else would have called the cops for theft. He said David had no right to take what wasn't his. David threw a full tantrum, expecting Mom to save him, but Dad didn't budge. When David realized he wasn't getting away with it, he screamed that he hated me and stormed off, slamming his door. After that, David kept his distance. He finally understood he couldn't physically intimidate me anymore, and even Dad had stopped excusing him. For the first time, I felt like we were on equal ground. He still insulted me behind our parents' backs, but the physical threat was gone. As he got older, though, his anger grew darker. If I asked him a simple question, he'd ignore me and mutter loser or dork while walking away. If he needed to tell me something, he'd relay it through Mom. When I asked her why he couldn't just talk to me like a normal person, she told me to be more patient. I never knew if it was teenage hormones or pure hatred. His constant jabs became unbearable. I begged Mom repeatedly to sit us down so we could hash it out. She always refused, saying she didn't want to take sides. I finally escaped to my dream university on a full academic scholarship. Dad threw a proud celebration. Even Mom beamed. David barely looked at me. The day I left home felt like breaking out of prison. My first semester was pure freedom. No more walking on eggshells, no more venomous comments. In my second year, I met Karen at a frat party through a mutual friend. We clicked instantly. We came from conservative religious families, so an unplanned pregnancy in senior year meant quick marriage after graduation. It was a small, happy wedding. Both sets of parents were thrilled. I thought Karen was my forever. I'd always wanted monogamy, one woman, one life. Plenty of girls showed interest over the years, but I never strayed. I was truly content. Karen was everything to me, yet I later discovered two separate affairs. One was a years-long relationship with a married coworker. The other a short reunion with an ex when she visited her parents. Some called me naive. I can't entirely argue. Both times we separated briefly, but I forgave her. I didn't want our child raised in a broken home and believed people could change. The coworker affair happened when we were young. I chalked it up to immaturity. After the second betrayal 4 years ago, things genuinely seemed better. I worked hard to rebuild trust and move forward. 3 months ago, she destroyed everything again. She sat me down and admitted she'd been having another long-term affair and that our son might not be mine. I felt the floor disappear beneath me. She was eerily calm, almost detached, answering my frantic questions with vague, evasive nonsense. I demanded to know who the other man was. Eventually, she said it was David. I thought I'd misheard. She explained it started the year I first brought her home for the holidays. David, who'd always treated me like garbage, was suddenly charming and attentive toward her. Karen desperately wanted my family to like her, so she spent extra time with Mom and tried to bridge the gap between David and me. She invited him to movies, let him pick, tried to force brotherly bonding. David opened up to her about a breakup. She said he flirted harmlessly at first. Then one thing led to another. She felt guilty and fled home early that New Year's, something that had puzzled me at the time. 2 weeks after she returned to campus, we discovered the pregnancy. She admitted she wasn't sure whose baby it was, but I was the stable choice, so she stayed with me. That's why we married. She also confessed the affair never really stopped. They kept meeting in hotels, lying about overtime and work trips. Half her business trips were weekends with him. I asked why she married me if she wanted David. She said she didn't have the courage to leave, that I was the better father, and that she got caught in a cycle she didn't know how to end. I told her I was glad she finally told the truth, then quietly started packing. She broke down, begging for another chance, expecting me to scream. I didn't have the energy. She switched tactics, said if I loved her I'd fight for her, that every marriage has mistakes, that our son needed both parents. I reminded her the boy might not even be mine. She accused me of cruelty. I think she believed my history of forgiveness meant I'd always cave. I walked out while she sobbed on the porch and checked into a hotel. The next morning I drove to my parents and told them everything. Years of secret meetings, the possible paternity question. Mom immediately defended David, insisting her baby boy would never do that. I asked them to stay silent, called David on speaker, and confronted him. He denied it furiously until I said Karen had confessed everything. Then he threw her under the bus, called her names, bragged that women couldn't resist him and that he was the better-looking brother anyway. I laughed and told him thanks for confirming it for the audience. The line went dead quiet. Mom snatched the phone, trembling with rage and disappointment. Dad took over. His voice was ice. He told David what he'd done wasn't just betrayal of his brother. It was betrayal of the entire family. He said they'd raised him better than to sleep with his brother's wife and keep doing it after the wedding. Dad told him the college fund was gone, the monthly allowance was gone, everything was gone. Let's see how tough you are without my money. David begged, cried, blamed Karen again. Mom tried weakly to defend him at first, but even she went silent. Dad hung up. Mom hugged me for the first time in years and whispered that she was sorry she never believed me. 14-year-old me would have given anything for that hug. Dad immediately found me the best divorce attorney. Karen and her lawyer tried to squeeze alimony, but serial adultery plus paternity fraud crushed her case. The DNA test confirmed David was the father. That hurt worse than the affair itself. The little boy I'd raised and loved wasn't mine. Karen begged me to keep visiting him, saying he didn't deserve to lose a dad because of adult mistakes. Couldn't. Every time I looked at him, I saw David's face. Once the divorce was final, I moved into a downtown bachelor apartment. I'd married so young I'd never truly lived alone. Felt strange at first, then liberating. My naturally independent personality took over, and I loved it. 2 weeks ago, Dad called. He and Mom had rewritten their wills. David gets $1. Everything else, almost $2 million, comes to me, structured so David can't contest it. David has been blowing up their phones, showing up at the house crying, but they won't open the door. Even Mom, who always caved, has held firm. He has never once texted or called to apologize to me. He isn't sorry for what he did, he's sorry he lost the money. And now he wants my help.